This design definitely did not start like this. It started with an old gray suit. It's always fun and exciting to turn something old into something new. Follow me along as I show you the deconstruction and reconstruction of this old gray suit. I am loving the short pants suit and I cannot wait to wear it. Come along, let's go. So, you guys, I am really excited about getting this together. I am unbuttoning the suit so you can be able to see what it looks like. It has pockets, it has different things. It's a nice gray suit. It was sewn together very well, but I wanted to take it and do something else with it. I kept thinking about doing a short pant suit. And so that is what I was aiming for. I was a little nervous that I wasn't going to have enough fabric to be able to do it. But as we go along, you'll see where I added some more fabric in there. This isn't really my style, and so I decided to take it and change it into something else different. And on the inside, you can be able to see that they put in slip covers and they put in just a black undergarments in order to add a little bit of professionalism to the suit, I would say. And on the side, you can see it's just for decor buttons, not really for actually putting in the holding the sleeve together. And so I'm going to take the sleeve, I'm going to scrunch it up, I'm going to take out the inner lining, and I'm going to take out the shoulder pads in order to create something that is more along my speed. And so the first thing that I have to do is deconstruct. And here is my handy dandy seam ripper, you guys. Yes, I have it in my hand, and I actually know where all three of my seam rippers are. And so if you know anything about, if you've been watching my fashion journey, then you know that my seam ripper and I, sometimes we don't get along and sometimes I lose it. And so the first thing is I'm going to take my seam ripper and I am going to take out the lining that was inside of the dress. In order to do that, I have to find a good place to be able to break the thread open. It's so good to keep your as much as you can, keep the pieces together without having to do a whole lot concerning just cutting it out with scissors, because you want as much fabric as you possibly can. And so this is everything. And the zipper came off when I tried to unzip it because of the part that blocks the zipper from coming off was cut off by the designer. And as I was going along, I took out everything. I took out the hems, I took out the pleats, I took out everything that had anything to do with stitching. And the reason why I wanted to take it out, because I wanted to be able to use as much of the fabric as possible. And this is what it looks like, and you can see where there are pockets. I took out the pockets because I wanted to work with it as if it was like new fabric. And this is a skirt, and now we're going to move on to the jacket. And the jacket, I have to do a lot more work because there's lining, there is holes for the buttons, there are pockets. And so this one was a little bit more work for me to be able to construct and deconstruct. And the buttons, and you can see the pocket there, and I'm going to take the buttons, I'm going to save those buttons, because if I don't use them on this design, then I can use them on another design in another outfit. That is something that you can do when you're deconstructing things. You can always save the parts that you're going to need. All right, so I am going to finish taking the seams out of the jacket now. And so I'm going to show you how to kind of, if you don't know how to use a seam ripper, how to use one. Now, first of all, you got to find the thread. So let me come in a little bit closer. Okay. So, you guys, my camera, if you guys see a little bit of blur on the screen, got to get a new camera for my phone because it cracked. And so this one is hard to get into. So whoever put this together, they sewed it together really, really well. But we have to get into it. So we want to find a spot where we can kind of pull it apart, and we'll be able to see like the little tiny thread, and we take our seam ripper and we get in there to break the thread open, and it breaks it open. And then what we want to do is we want to find, because we want to keep as much, of the actual fabric together as possible. So when we break it open, okay. So you guys, when you finally find your hot spot to be able to rip the seam out, the thread out, then you just keep on working on that part until you are able to open it up further so that you can detach every part that needs to be detached, undo the hem and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm just going to continue on ripping apart my seams so that I can preserve as much fabric as I possibly can. It's so important to preserve as much fabric as you need because you want to be able to have as much as you possibly can without having to add any extra to it, and or so that you won't have to not do something that maybe you desire to do with the amount of fabric that you have because you cut off a piece that you might have needed. So after I finish taking out the seams of this skirt and this jacket, then I am going to detach the buttons. And I told you earlier that I love to keep the buttons. These are part of, if I redo something, if I revamp it, then the buttons are something that I keep just in case I might need it later on for a design. And it keeps me from having to buy so many buttons at the store. So here I am just showing you the cut up pieces of my jacket. I cut off the part, not cut off, but I took my seam ripper and I ripped out the seams that had the buttons and some of the button holes, but I had to keep some parts because of how they were cut. And then I also cut off the sleeves, and so this is what I'm left with, and I took off the pockets. And then I decided that, you know what, I'm going to find some scrap pieces of fabric. I remember that I had this red fabric and I wanted to do it, incorporate it within my design so that I can be able to make the shorts because I didn't think I had enough of this fabric in order to be able to make the shorts in my design because of the way that I had to make the pattern piece. And so what I did was first of all made these pieces one piece together, the red and the plaid, and then I got me some paper and I decided to measure myself and make me a pattern piece, which you will see a little bit later. I use Christmas paper because I did not have my pattern paper. And the great thing about this piece of Christmas paper is the fact that it had lines on there like grids. And so that made it a little bit easier for me to be able to see and measure my design. And then I pinned it down to the fabric so that I can get ready to cut it out. And once I cut it out, then you will be able to see exactly what it looks like so that I can begin to sew it. So I'm taking the fabric and pinning it down. You guys, my fabric paper isn't readily available, so I am using Christmas paper, you guys, in order to make my pattern piece. But I was like, I need to make a pattern piece before I do this because I'm turning it into some shorts. And then I had to add a little bit extra fabric, but it had red in there like that is on the jacket. And so I sewed two different, I had a little bit of this fabric left over from a previous jacket that I cut up and did, and I had some of it left over, and I mixed it with this. And so this is going to be part of my shorts. And not only that, I've already cut out the one piece. This is the front of the piece, the pattern, so it works out just fine. Christmas wrapping paper, y'all. So if you need some craft paper, I showed you guys some craft paper that I had, some to draw your pattern pieces on. I'm gonna cut this. Then I encourage you to use the different ways to do that, and one of them is using Christmas paper. But anyway, so that's the first one. That's the front. And this is, I'm going to finish pinning it down. So I took and cut the pieces out just to ensure that each piece fit together. It's not sewn down. I'm just testing everything out to make sure this is what the front is going to look like. And my pieces are cut out, just making sure everything fits okay. And this is the back piece of the piece. I told you I have two different fabrics, and I think it's going to pair together nicely. And then here is the other side of that. And so we're going to go ahead and get these pieces sewn down together. So the next thing for me to do was to sew the pieces down together. So I got out my sewing machine and sewed the pieces together. And then when I sewed it down, I realized that I might have put it together wrong. And I was like, oh gosh, I was in such a hurry to sew it down because I was excited about getting this piece together. And so I had to rip these seams out and start over again so that it could be sewn together properly and right. And I'm going to show you what the design looked like before I decided to hem it up in the next slide. You can see I put pockets in there because I was like, it would be so cool to have pockets. This is, the back hasn't been sewn together just yet all the way, but you can see where I put lining inside of the front piece of the fabric because of the lightness of the red fabric. I didn't want you to be able to see through it. I wanted there to be something to give it a little bit of extra security measures when it comes to wearing it. And so I was thinking about putting in a zipper, but I changed my mind, and so I decided to just sew those pieces up, put in my pocket, so that when I put it on, then I will be able to stick my hand in my pockets. I love pockets, and I really love this design and how it's turning out. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to sew the back piece. I'm going to hem it up. I'm going to cut it even because some of the pieces, as you can see, weren't cut as even, and you can see some hanging threads. And then I will have to iron it down so that all the pieces can be able to attach a little bit better and won't be so rocky and so bumpy when I'm wearing it. Ironing is such an important step when it comes to sewing and putting your designs and pieces together. And so this is, the shorts almost done, and I'm going to go ahead and finish working on them so you can see the final design and product. So this is the final design, and I am just modeling it for you here at the end. I hope and pray that you would go forth and conquer your dreams and join me for the next sew project, and be blessed in Jesus' name.